Hi everyone, welcome back. Well, we're down at Whiteman Park again today working on the International Titan D tractor, and it's been a while since we've been able to get anything done to this for various reasons, but we're finally able to get back on and do a bit more work to it. This week's project, if we come round the back here, is to rebuild the steelwork that we are missing here on the driver's footplate. Now, this tractor has been very hard to find information on for a long time, so I didn't actually have too much information about what this should look like. However, we can have a reasonable guess at some of the things we need to know on here. If we come down here and look at these bolts, these are a cup head bolt, and these are usually used with into wooden planks. So because we still have the bolts in here, we can have a reasonable guess that the planks were probably 1.5 inches thick, which is a fairly substantial plank. But that's for a tractor this size. Everything on this is heavy, so probably that is about right. Each plank is likely to have 2 bolts in. So we've got these 2 here. These 2 here are going to be a plank. These 2 here are going to be the next plank with the gap in there somewhere. So if we measure from this bolt to this bolt, that tells us how wide the planks are. So it's looking like the planks are going to be 7.5 inches wide. Now we measure from this bolt to this bolt because if we then move our 7.5 inches to halfway between each one, that's where the join will be, and that gives us the distance that it's likely to be. So we need planks that are 1.5 inches by 7.5. They're not going to be easy to find, but we're going to worry about that a bit later. I do have a couple of leads on where I can get timber like that. We also need something that's going to hold up our drawbar. This is a bit bent, but it should be up at that level, and it needs to be able to swing backwards and forwards. Now the other thing to look at is we've got cross bracing here, but at the moment it only goes one way. We do, however, have matching holes on the opposite side, so likely there was another piece of cross bracing that ran across this way. We've got holes in the back here, likely to hold up whatever we need at the back here, and we've got more holes down here, which I believe are for a bracket that comes out this way. At the moment this is fairly flimsy. Interestingly, this is actually, the whole floor is actually sprung on big springs back in there. So it does move around a bit, but we need to make it, it will become a lot more rigid as we bolt all the other pieces on. Now, it took me a long time to find photos or any original information on this tractor, but eventually I found these photos here, and unfortunately I can't find the digital copies again, but here it shows, there's the drawbar. There's a piece of angle underneath there. We've got square-headed bolts holding everything on, and we've got timber planks in here. This looks like another piece of angle along the top here as well. So this gives us a lot of clues as to how to build this. Luckily, Chris Hudson, who is restoring a Titan in America, not only sent me some photos of his machine that he is restoring, that has a huge amount of detail in it that I can glean and copy for what I need to do, but also sent me some of the original plans that have an awful lot of the information for me to make new parts for this one. So the first thing that we need to do here is to make up the angle brackets that go here that are going to hold the large piece of angle on the back there. We are using 75 by 10 mil steel plate for this, or 3 inch by just under ½ inch. Now we don't have any dimensions for these, so this is all a bit of guesswork here. But we have these 2 holes here, so we know that this leg of our bracket needs to come back beyond here, and this leg needs to be long enough to have 2 holes going in from the front. Now interestingly, because both of these pieces of angle are round the same way on here, the drawings actually show that this piece of angle goes this way, and this piece of angle also goes this way, so it's sitting flush on here. Normally you'd expect this piece to be the other way around and for it to come out here to hold it on. But that's what the drawings show, so we are going to go with that. So the first thing to do is to mark out where we need to bend our piece of flat bar. Now, because this was built using an imperial ruler, we're going to keep using an imperial ruler to work out how long everything needs to be. So just to make things a little bit oversized, we're going to make this leg of our bracket 5 inches. By the time you put another half in there, probably it was a 4 inch with a half hanging over. If we make it oversized and we bend it wrong, we can always trim it later. The steel's relatively cheap compared to the time it takes to make everything, so we're just going to start by making everything a bit oversized. After marking this out, we're going to heat this up red hot with the oxy torch so that we can bend it. I've marked this with a scriber. It doesn't really matter whether you use a scriber or a pen. As soon as you start heating it, those marks pretty much disappear. So the best thing to do is to use a centre punch and just put a few punch marks along there. You'll be able to still see them when it's red hot. Next, we are going to heat it up red hot along here, put it in the vise and bend it. Once this is red hot, metal bends fairly easily. Now, today we're going to be using the oxy set to heat it up. I am using a cutting tip. This is an old cutting tip and I have a new cutting tip that I keep for cutting. When you are using them for heating, you wear them out a bit and they don't give you as nice a flame and as good a cut later on when you want to use it for cutting. So keep an older one for when you're heating, and save your good one for when you are cutting. Okay, let's get this hot and bend it. Next, we're going to clamp our piece of angle in place, and we're just going to check it with a straight edge between the 2 of them there and across the end there. And then we can come in and mark our holes on the inside here up again from the original holes on the original piece of steel. Then we can take it off and drill the holes. Now that we've got our two brackets made up on the back here, we can cut the length of angle that goes across the back. Now we can get this dimension off the drawings if we look really closely, but once again, the drawings and the photos and pictures that I've got all show slight variations on across the different ones of these that were made. So we need to have a bit of a guess about what it should be. The drawings also give us dimensions for where some of the holes need to be in this, but not all of them. Next we're going to lift it up and just hold it in place and work out where the holes need to go in here. Okay, so we've got our angle lifted up into place now, and we've marked out where we want our bolts to go. Whenever we're marking out bolts, it's a bit of a guess, and it's just sort of what looks right, as close to what we can see in original photos and drawings as we can get, because there is no dimensions for these things. Somebody will probably pick it and say that's wrong, but this is the closest that we can get. So we're going to drill them next. We're going to drill a little pilot hole through both pieces here while it's clamped in place. Then we'll take it apart and put it on the drill press to drill out the bigger holes. So the next bit we've got to make here is the cross braces. Now there's one that bolts on from that side here and goes out to this corner here, and there's another one on this side that goes out not quite to the corner, so it dodges around the wheels. We're going to be using 50 by 10 or the closest we can get to 2 by 1/2 inches flat bar for this. So the first thing we need to do is put a bend in down that end. Okay, so we've got our two diagonal braces made up. Getting this next bend in exactly the right spot is going to take a little bit more time. We do have a little bit of leeway because depending on the angle you bend this, there's enough flexibility in here that you just make it fit where it ends up sitting. So we're going to mark these out next on both sides and bend these up. So I'm pretty happy with the way these turned out. Next we've got to mark and drill the holes to go through here. Obviously we've got to trim this up. We will trim up a whole bundle of these bits once everything is finished. This one's pretty good too. I've got to trim this and drill the holes for this. So we'll drill holes and trim them up next. The next piece we need to make up is the other diagonal brace that goes from down here to up here. This just stops any sideways movement in here. And this is going to be a little bit tricky to do. We've got to bend it on a 45-degree angle down there. And that's not easy to do accurately with an oxy set and a vise. This is the piece that we are making up for it, and I have managed to bend one end and I'm reasonably happy with that, the way that's turned out. Next we need to bend this end of it and try and get it so that it lines up with the hole and it's tight on here. Possibly we should have done this piece first before we did these outside bits, but never mind, we're going to make this work. So this is fitting reasonably well at the moment. It's bolted on at that end. It's nice and square at this end. The only problem I have is that the bolt hole is not quite in the middle of the piece of steel, but I don't think I'm going to get it much better than that. I will just tweak this corner just a little bit more, and then we'll drill the hole, get it bolted up, and get all the excess metal trimmed off it. Okay, so we've got all of the holes drilled, all of the braces in, and everything bolted together. And I'm pretty pleased with the way this has come out so far. The next thing we need to do is make the support for the swinging drawbar. So that is another piece of angle the same as this, but up the other way. And this is where the guesswork starts. We don't have a length for the angle, and the different pictures that I've looked at show appear to show different lengths, and we don't have a gap for in here. So we're going to mock this up now and just see what it might look like. Okay, so we've got this bottom piece of angle clamped in place. I'm reasonably happy with that gap in there. That's just a fraction over 1.5 inches. That allows the drawbar to slide. Drawbar's all bent at the moment, so it's not sliding well. Now I know the pictures we've got do show that piece in there for the drawbar to slide on. But that is not on any of the original drawings or the original blueprint drawings or any of the advertising material that I can see. So I don't think they all had that, and there's no evidence of wear on the drawbar where it has been sitting in a shoe like that. So we're going to just leave that out, but we can always, there's enough room in there to make one of them up later if we want to. For the moment, we're just going to get the spaces made up to go in here, as close to what the photos and drawings look like, because they don't actually give a drawing of that piece. We'll come back after I'll show you making up the spaces as we're going. But for the moment, I'm just going to fiddle around with this and make sure I'm happy with everything the way it's sitting. So we've made up one of the spaces to go in here. We're using 3-inch wide plate for this, 3 pieces of that, and a piece of 2-inch wide at the back here. This is what it looks like in its component pieces. So we'll weld that together and end up with something that looks the same as this. And I think by the time we've cleaned that up a bit, that's not going to look too far out of place. So this is what our nearly finished spacer block looks like, and I think that's turned out reasonably well. It looks very similar to what I can see in the drawings and various photos. So we've just got to do a couple of little bits to finish this off, and we're almost there. Okay, so we've got it all back together. I'm quite pleased with the way this has actually turned out. These bits probably would have been cast originally, but they look pretty close to what's in the drawing on them. Some of the pictures and drawings show holes in here to pin the drawbar, but not all of them. So I've got to do a little bit more research before we drill all the holes in here, and work out what size and spacing and all of that sort of stuff. But I'm pretty pleased with the way this has turned out. There's a few more things we've got to do now that we've got this on, got this back together, and then we can take it all off and send it off to be sandblasted, and we can start repainting it. So at the moment there's a big difference between the old metal and the new metal. Once the new metal's been sandblasted, there won't be such a noticeable difference. It will still look different, but not as big a difference. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye.